Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Bunk'd. Bunk'd is a very unique Disney Channel show. It ran for 9 years and 7 full seasons. The show came out in 2015 and ended in 2024. And as of 2025, it is still Disney Channel's longest running show, seconded by that of Raven's Home. The show, just like Raven's Home, is actually a spinoff, but Raven's Home's more of a continuation. But Bunk'd is a spinoff. It was originally that of a spinoff show of Jessie. And Jessie came out in like 2011. I've already reviewed that, go watch that. And Jessie is one of my all-time favorite Disney Channel shows. It's either ranked number 2 or 3. I kind of keep switching it with Even Stevens, so I don't really know. You know what I'm saying? But it's one of my top 3 like favorite shows. And both Bunk'd and Jessie was created by Pamela Ellis O'Connell, and she was the showrunner for that of Bunk'd for about 2, maybe 3 seasons, and then I think 2, and then she got replaced. And when she got replaced, this is when the cast changes started coming in and the tone of the show kind of shifted and everything. She's actually created Jessie, the Indian version of Jessie, and Bunk'd, but she was an executive producer on many shows. Family Matters, Step by Step, Married with Children, like some The Nanny, some very popular like sitcom shows. After the second season and the start of the third season, Pamela was out and they brought over Andy Mack showrunners, Phil Baker and Aaron Dunlap. But at the start of the 5th season, all the way towards the end, Aaron Dunlap was the sole showrunner. And you can clearly tell the changes that were made in the show. Like, Bunk'd is very iconic for many reasons. One, it's the longest running Disney Channel show. 2, it has a rotating cast. They have 17 main cast members all throughout those 9 years and about 4 recurring characters. That's a freaking lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's about 20 to 21 cast members and stuff. And it's also iconic for being one of the most it has divided the fan base. Let's just say that. You either like Bunk'd or you don't like Bunk'd. There are people who generally just really enjoy and love this show, and there are people who flat out hate this show. There are some people who say this show dragged on for too long. Some say it should have been canceled after the first season. Some say it should have been canceled after the second or third. And some say it should never existed. Then there are other people like myself who actually enjoy this show. It's entertaining, it's pretty funny, and of course we all watched it because of the Ross kids. But then the Ross kids left after season 3. Originally, this show was supposed to get canceled after the 3rd season. This is why they wrote the Ross kids off. That, and they was going to pursue other careers, which many of them have not. Well, at least one of them has pursued many stuff. And like Peyton List is she's been in so many like streaming movies. She's appeared in Light as a Feather, but was only in like 3 episodes. But then she made it big with Cobra Kai and a show she executive produced and stars in called School Spirits on Paramount Plus, which is in its 3rd season. The other two Ross kids haven't really done much. Sadly, they've been hit by the Disney Channel curse. In fact, pretty much every cast member on this show, whether they're main or recurring, have been hit by the Disney Channel curse. They've barely appeared in anything after, and some haven't appeared in anything at all after this show. And I really hate that Disney Channel curse thing, you know? But like, what was I saying? Like, but yeah, it's like pretty entertaining, it's pretty funny and stuff like that. And it's just an enjoyable, watchable show. Is it the best Disney Channel show of all time? No. Is it the best, like, ranking top 5 Disney Channel shows? No. Is it like probably like the top 10? That debatable on your taste. Like maybe it can hit like 11 at the most or something like that, or maybe number 10. But like it's a pretty entertaining show in my opinion and stuff. However, one main criticism with this show, and I can see where people are coming from, is that while yes, it is funny, it's not overly that funny, but they kind of have way too many jokes. Pretty much it's like this. And I'm not even joking, just about every 5 to 10 seconds, there's a joke. And not all of them land. And it's just kind of like, yo, just chill with the humor and let the story flow. But every 5 to 10 to 15 seconds, they want to add a joke with a laugh track, and it's just not working sometimes. And it's just kind of like, why? Why would they say that? That's kind of corny and everything, you know? Now, just like with Jesse in those first 2 seasons, this show dealt with the typical racial stereotypes and everything, just like Jesse. And it's just like, why? Why does Pamela do this crap for? I don't get it. By the 3rd season, the racial stereotypes kind of ended, but then in around the 4th, they kind of came back a little, just a little. But for the most part, they cut out all the racial stereotypes and everything and stuff. You know, because Jesse was infamous for racial stereotypes and like character stereotypes and stuff like that. You know, when it comes to Bunk'd, I remember just being gutted after the 2nd season when like they got rid of the majority of the cast. They only kept 4, and then they brought in 3 new cast members. But the people they got rid of, it's like, even though like Hazel and Gladys were like horrible people, you still love them deep down inside because they helped make the show memorable and everything. They helped make the show what it was. So Bonk has a very unique blend flavor to it, you know what I'm saying? Now, the show had about 161 episodes. That's a lot. And season 1 and 2, let's see, what was that? Seasons 1, 2, and I believe 5 had 21 episodes. Season 3 had the shortest with 16. Season 6 and 4 had 30, and season 7 had 22 episodes. And the tone of the show really did change after a couple of seasons, especially after they got rid of the majority of the first 2 seasons cast. Like, season 1 and 2 cast are just memorable, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're the ones who started the show. You had like, you know, smart characters, the gross characters, the mean characters, the nice characters, the silly, goofy characters and stuff, and the very chill, relaxed characters. You had an awesome theme song that was sung by that of Kevin Quinn, who played Xander. And the intro was very warm. It's one of the best intros, in my opinion, on a Disney Channel show. He has an amazing singing voice. Like, the imagery they show is very warm and cozy and everything. And like, they deal with your typical Disney Channel shows. It's like you deal with something serious, but they do it in a quirky, kind of funny way that doesn't hammer over your head and stuff. Season three is probably the most divided either. Like, the season. See,
However,
season one had like in its first episode, like 400 million like viewers and stuff. Then by the finale of season one, they only had like 100 million. By season three, they only had like about 90 million viewerships and stuff. And then in season three and four, they were around the 60 million range and stuff. I don't know about the other seasons. So the show started to dip in viewership after a while, and especially after the first two seasons. Season three is what I call the full house season, where it's pretty much okay, there was like, this is when they hammer stuff over your head, like the moral lesson of the week. So, season three, it seemed like everybody was overly emotional and everything. Everybody got their feelings hurt. There was a lot of conflict in season three because Hazel and Gladys is now gone, the antagonist. Now it's like all the new campers just can't get along with one another. Even the recurring cast members who was in season one and two, they can't get along with each other. So everybody's always hurting each other's feelings, and they take it way too strongly. And so then you have kind of like this full house where they sit you down, they explain your feelings, and they talk about how you hurt my feelings, and somebody gives like a pep talk and everything. Very down to earth type, full house type stuff. You know what I'm saying? Also, they changed the way the cabins looked inside because at the end of season two, Hazel accidentally burnt them down. And so like they remodeled the bunk cabins in season three to the point to where they didn't even look like wooden cabin rooms and everything. They just look like your typical Disney Channel extravagant like Disney Channel like sibling room, like Alex Russo's room or Raven Baxter's room or something like that. Like it just looked unrealistic. The girls had kind of like this glamorous looking thing, and the guys kind of had like this playhouse futuristic looking thing. It did not look like summer camp. Then you get to the fourth season, and this is when they kind of went back to tradition and everything because they started to realize the third season kinda didn't really mesh well with a lot of audience viewers and stuff. The cabin rooms got redone again and stuff because supposedly a landslide and mudslide and sinkhole or something like that happened off screen between seasons three and four. So they had to remodel. So they went back to the wooden traditional look of a cabin room and everything. They also brought in like a counselor who's very lazy and doesn't really like being around kids. So they kind of had that antagonistic feel to them, you know what I'm saying? And they kind of just like kind of went back to traditions and stuff like that. Bringing in like another new camper and stuff. And seasons four and five are probably kind of what I would call like the soft reboot. Well, no, not really a soft reboot. I guess I'll call season four and five the back to basics seasons. Then season six and seven, this is when the show got a name change to Learning the Ropes, and it was more of a country western, like ranch type vibe. I've never watched season six and seven, like never. I watched the first episode of season six and the last episode of season seven, the finale episode. I just don't want to go from summer camp to a ranch setting. And also, I don't like the idea of losing more campers and stuff and getting a bunch of brand new campers and everything. Also, another problem a lot of people have with this show, and especially me, is like the recycling of like characters. Pretty much every time a new camper would come like on the show, they was a I can't talk. Carbon copy of somebody from like the Jesse show. Like you had the slob, you had the genius, you had the fashionista, you had the lazy person, you had the actor or actress and everything. And it was just a carbon copy. Oh, you also had the rude, mean, nasty person who's like the adult figure. And it was just a carbon copy, a recycling of like the Jesse characters. Then, once they started doing more like, cast changes, then they started recycling characters from both Jesse and Bunk season 1 and 2. And it just got annoying. It's just kind of like, why give us these new people with the same personalities as these other people? Just give us these other people. But when it comes to Gwen, she was probably the most original of the Bunk cast. I can't find a single Jesse or like bunked character who they like blended into her. She was like completely original, and she only lasted for like 1 season and stuff. Now, Miranda May, who played Lou, she lasted for all 7 seasons and became the main staple of the show. And it's funny because I never would have thought she would have been the main star of the show because, like, in the first 3 seasons, she was just like, a recurring main character and a comedic relief. Then she took over the show, and I'm so happy for her because I always liked Miranda and stuff. Now, as to why they got like cast changes, well, it's never truly been explained. However, recently, and I'm not sure how recently, Kevin Quinn, who played Xander, explained why he left the show because he actually asked to leave the show and everything. And it was a pretty dramatic reason why, and I'll get to that later when I get to his character bio. Tessa Netting, who plays Hazel, she actually made a YouTube video explaining why she left Bunk. But that's like, because she also had like a YouTube channel while she was also acting. And that's actually, I think, the last YouTube video she made. Either that or why she gave up on Harry Potter because of the J.K. Rowling thing. But one of those 2 videos is like her last YouTube video ever. And in that video, she actually doesn't explain at all why she left Bunk. She actually has no idea why they let her go. And there's been kind of some speculation as to why they did the cast rotation and everything. One reason is because the 3rd season was supposed to be legit the last season and everything. And so because of that, they got rid of the Rosses. But then because of the show's popularity, they had to bring the show back. But the Rosses had already, their contracts had already expired. So it could have been just something like that. But then, of course, they brought in the new trio in season 3 with like Mateo, Finn, and Destiny and everything. They brought them back for the next seasons and stuff. And so, but the Rosses, they were gone. Plus, the Rosses were getting older and stuff, which makes sense because they was counselors, but they had already gone. They've been with Disney Channel for so long. And so, like, they had to leave. And one reason could be is because of salary. Now, in the first 2 seasons, you notice that some of the main characters don't appear in every episode. And this is because of budget. They have a lot of good CGI on this show and practical effects. And so because of that, the budget for the characters had to be like very precise. Background characters never speak, and their background characters constantly change. It's like they bring in new kids for background characters every episode, it feels. Unlike the Sweet Life of Zach and Cody and stuff, where like, oh, also Pamela worked on the Sweet Life and stuff. Anyway, you constantly saw those recurring characters on the Sweet Deck and stuff, and crap like that. But here they was constantly rotating. Also, like I said before, the like 2 new characters like Jorge and Tiffany, they would miss a lot of episodes because every time they would bring in a guest star, one of them had to leave the show for that episode because they couldn't pay them and that guest star. So also there's this other person who worked on some show. I think it was Good Luck Charlie or something like that, where he explained that, one of the it was somebody's show. I can't remember who it was, but they went past like 3, 4 seasons, and Disney Channel dropped some cast members and brought some more because they say Disney doesn't like to renew people's contracts, because if they've been there for over 3 or 4 years, then they have to get like a pay raise in their salary, and Disney does not like doing that. And we know for a fact Disney is very stingy with their money. So, since some of these characters, like the Rosses, have been there since the Jesse days and everything, they probably didn't want to renegotiate their contract and pay them more money. Another reason could be maybe the audience just wasn't feeling these cast members. I like them and everything, but I can see why some other people was kind of like, I'm not feeling this person and stuff like that. So we will truly never really know the real reason as to why these people got dropped. And that has to be heartbreaking, because you're on a Disney Channel show, and Disney Channel is big, and you're a household name, and so you're getting paid money, you're buying this, you're doing that, and then all of a sudden they just like drop you. And like I said before, they was hit by the Disney Channel curse, because some of them have barely appeared in anything afterwards. Now, one thing I found very interesting, and makes you wonder what happened behind the scenes, is like, even though they fired these cast members, they would bring them back for like one episode in like the other seasons and stuff, like a guest appearance. Like Emma came back for like season either 4 or 5 for a guest appearance. Hazel came back for like season 4. Ava came back for like season 5 and I think 6. Finn came back for like an episode. And Gwen and Mateo came back for the finale. But then it's kind of like, oh, and also the dude who was like the chef, he came back. But then other characters never ever returned. Not even for a single episode. And not only did they not return, some of these characters were never ever mentioned again. Like Jorge and Tiffany, they never came back for the show, not even for the finale, when they tried to bring back as many former cast members as possible. They were never brought back, and they were never mentioned, and they was never mentioned as to why they left Kikiwaka and everything. And then in season 3, when they showed like a picture of like the former woodchucks and everything, Tiffany's not even in the picture. That is very shocking. It's like when they got rid of her, they made sure they got rid of her to where you wouldn't even like question where she is and stuff. But to not mention what happened to Jorge or like Tiffany, that was low down. They mentioned what happened to Gladys, and it was a pretty sad conclusion. She basically stole the insurance money and just fled and everything. But we never saw her again. Hazel they brought back, and they tried to make nicer, and they tried to retcon her a little bit as to the relationship between her and Lou, and it's kind of like, I don't remember that ever happening and everything. Xander never came back, but there's a reason why he never came back, because he actually asked to leave the show. And like I said before, I'll get into that a little bit later. Griff, he never came back. And it's just kind of odd that some characters never return, you know what I'm saying? I mean, Timmy returned, but he stopped returning after season 3. Now, just like with Jesse, there are hallucination and dream episodes, but there's a weird well, not a dream episode, but a time traveling episode in season 3. And it's a legit time traveling episode, which is strange and bizarre because for the most part, Jesse and Bunk doesn't really deal in the supernatural and stuff until that one Jesse episode where they met Spider-Man, the cartoon episode, and the supernatural does exist. So it's kind of one of those weird canon, off canon type episodes. Also, the lobster episode. Something had to have happened in season 3 to where at some point in time they considered canceling the show. You gotta remember this was back in the day when like they would film a number of episodes like early on in the year, take a little bit of a hiatus break, and then film like the rest. Because in the lobster episode, it's shown that the Rosses are actually still in Camp Kikiwaka for 2 years prior after the third season. That doesn't make no sense because they leave at the end of season 3. But we see what happens like 2 years and they're still there and everything. So this has now been considered like non-canon. Bunk is also legendary for having like one character's parents have two gay parents, and I believe there was even a gay wedding in the later seasons in the Learning of the Ropes like season. This was big because LGBT representation is very lacking in Disney Channel, and so for them to do this was very brave of them. Also, to further that of diversity, they had a young girl who is actually deaf and did ASL. They also had a character in a wheelchair that Noah had a crush on. The character said that she just hurt her leg. I have no idea if the actress is actually really paraplegic or if it's just like somebody who's not just in a wheelchair. Now, they did have a guy in a wheelchair who really is paraplegic. Okay, I found the picture of the guy in the wheelchair. So yeah, he only appeared in the background for one episode and that was it. But they did have a guy on the show who did not have a neck. I can't find a picture of either of those guys. However, there is something that's never been addressed on Bunk'd, and I've never seen nobody talk about this. And this is the underage relationship between two characters. No, I'm not talking about the crush that Tiffany had on Ravi, because Ravi was never interested and had to let her down gently. That's just a typical kid having a crush, so nothing went beyond that. I'm talking about Emma and Xander. A lot of people don't really listen to when characters talk. In the first season, he said he should be allowed to leave camp and go into town because he's a grown man. However, he wasn't a grown man. He was only 17 years old. But in the first season, halfway through the first season, he actually has a birthday and he turns 18, just like the actor in real life. What's bad about this is that Emma in the first season is only like 16 years old. So, and those two first started off liking each other and then dating, breaking up, and dating again towards the middle of the first season, all the way towards the end of the second season. So, when they dated, she was 16, he was 17. Nothing bad about that. But when he turned 18, he was technically dating a 16-year-old. Then in season 2, she's 17 and he's 18, later turns 19. So he's an 18, 19 dating a 17-year-old, and that's a no-no because 17 is not the adult age. And then on one episode only, they actually kiss on the lips. But I'm not sure how old they were at the time. But he had to have been at least 18. How in the world did this fly past Disney Channel to have an underage relationship? I will never understand. Also, something that's really bizarre that a lot of people pointed out, and something I've noticed as well, is that, remember when I said like once a person leaves this show, they're never mentioned again? Ironically, Jessie has never ever been mentioned in this show and she never appears. And it's kind of like, how can Jessie not be name dropped at least once when this is the show it spun off from? Not to mention, they mentioned they had a bunch of nannies, indicating they had, and we knew they had several before Jessie, but it's kind of like, why was she never mentioned? Why was Debbie Ryan's character completely absent? Nobody knows, but this now further the speculation that her and Sky Jackson just never got along. I will say there was a level of unrealism towards, like, say, the third, fourth, and other seasons, because in the first two seasons they really did try to show you what kind of like camp life is about, like counselors, what they have to do, and CITs. Once you get into like the fourth season, the whole CIT thing is like gone, and you never hear no mention of it again. Plus, like, all the rules get kind of thrown out the handbook. Like, kids not supposed to leave the campgrounds and go into town. They constantly do it, like in the fourth season, and like, the fifth. Like, counselors being extremely irresponsible and everything. And it's just kind of like, what happened to the order of, like, what Kiki Walker camp life was like in season one and season two? After the whole, like, leadership change and like production and everything just kind of changed. And then when you get to, like, say, season five, that's the season I like to call the wacky season, where it's just like, it's Disney Channel doing what Disney Channel does best, is just be extremely wacky with no like common sense. There are just some storylines that are just weird and kind of like unbelievable and everything. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, like at least in the first two seasons, even though they had that wackiness to it, they still tried to be that of a sitcom and tried to show you what camp life is about. Now it's just them living on camp and having fun and everything. And that's probably why the show started to go downhill and most people started to tune out. It wasn't that show they recognized no more. It was a show that was kind of just like dragging on for like laughs and giggles and stuff. Because I know in the fifth season, they brought in that whole Pee Wee division, and that was to bring in, I guess, younger viewership in. But they didn't do really nothing with that. It was just kind of like, what was the point of bringing it in if he wasn't going to focus on it? That could have, like, rejuvenated the show, bring in a new trio and everything, and, like, bring in younger viewership to keep the show running a little bit longer. But instead, they brought in like Parker, who's like a grown man, and his character is very uninteresting. Nadine was a cool addition, but she was only a recurring guest for like 8 episodes. And they could have had like the former trio, who are now a little bit older, be CITs. But then it's like, once you get into the learning on the rope season, all of a sudden, like Ava, Mateo, and Finn of all people are now like counselors. Well, Ava already was, but the other two are now counselors, and they run Kiki Waka now that Lou's at the ranch and everything. And it's just kind of like, really, Finn's in charge? You know what I'm saying? But of course, we don't ever get to see this because they're now on the whole learning ropes thing. The whole learning ropes thing was a huge departure from the original show, because now it's like a dude ranch. And it could have probably lasted a whole lot longer than 2 seasons, but the writer guild strike was happening and stuff, and that delayed stuff. And once it came out of hiatus, they just decided to like end the show. Now, Bunk is notorious for being one of those rare Disney Channel shows not to have an extremely famous person guest star on the show. I'm not talking about like former Disney stars and stuff from other Disney shows. I'm talking about like people like The Rock, like when he was on, like, Wizards and stuff, or Aaron Carter or Frankie Muniz and stuff. You don't have nobody like that here. You just have like former Disney Channel stars guest starring. But they did do like a crossover. Towards the end of the fourth season, Raven's home like crossed over with Bunk'd, and that pissed me off because I hate Raven Simone. And speaking of Raven Simone, some former Disney Channel stars and a couple other people actually got to direct episodes. So Raven Simone directed a few. Phil Lewis from The Sweet Life, he directed a couple of episodes. Karen, Peyton, and Miranda from Bunk, they got to direct some episodes. And Kim Wayans, of all people, directed an episode. I was very shocked and surprised to find that out. I'm like, Kim Wayans, like, wow, like a Wayans family member? That's like cool and everything. Now, a former cast member of In Living Color that she worked with has ties to That So Raven. So that's probably how she directed the episode and stuff. Now, the number of campers who are like the extras on the show make no sense. Like I said before, every episode has a completely different cast of like extras. And the number just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, a cabin bunk on the show can fit anywhere between like 3 to 4 people. I've never been to summer camp, so I don't know how big a bunk is and everything, like a cabin bunk and stuff. But like, I remember Emma said in season 1 there are like 20 campers, but when you look at this show, there are way more than 20 kids on the show. A normal camp, especially as big as Kikiwaka, should have hundreds and hundreds of kids and stuff. Close to like 2, maybe 3 for the entirety of a 2-month stay. Because, you know, some camps like to divide it by semesters and stuff. Also, there should be dozens of counselors and adults, but there's only a small handful that you see on this show. So this never made no sense to me every time I'm watching this show. Like the numbers just don't make no sense. Okay, so character bios. I'll start with Mrs. Kipling. May he rest in peace. It's actually a guy playing the girl. He appears sporadically in the first, second, and third season, only in a handful of episodes, mainly because they have to do a lot of CGI with him around, because he can't be around any of the cast members of fear he might like hurt them in real life. But the trainer says he's very gentle, but you know, you never want to risk that. And so she's still her sassy little self, but she doesn't really appear that much or do really anything. So I'm not really sure why they brought her on this show. But of course, if you have an animal on the show gets paid more. So that's probably why. Oddly enough, Mrs. Kipling actually returns in season 4 without Ravi. Like, it was that Renaissance episode where Mateo had to slay a dragon because Lou wanted him to have some courage. And then all of a sudden, a breeded dragon just shows up, and it's Mrs. Kipling. And it's never explained how she got there from New York or why she's actually there. She's just there. It's the most random thing ever. And the writers should really be ashamed of themselves for like just randomly writing her into the show like that. Especially without Ravi and stuff. And Lou literally had no idea, so it wasn't her who set up Mrs. Kipling. It was just weird. But may he rest in peace, because the lizard who played Mrs. Kipling, he passed away. Big Stinky. So it was a skunk episode, and a pretty hilarious one at that. Basically, there's this skunk that keeps getting on Kikiwaka in the main part and keeps spraying everybody. Hazel, Lou, and Xander told the story of the Big Stinky massacre, that when he came on, like, you know, the campgrounds and just lit up. And pissed on everybody, getting it in their mouths and everything like that. And so, like, they did a pretty good job on the animatronics of this little skunk. And they also had a real skunk too. Now, of course, the animatronic is when the skunk had to like pee on people. And yes, that is how skunks make people smell. They piss on people and everything. However, it's like, I'm pretty sure that like a skunk, see, the thing is like they didn't really like portray a skunk very well. Of course, this is for comedic relief. A skunk will give you some warning signs before it's gonna spray you to let you know, hey, leave me alone and everything. And one of the things it does is I think it stands on its like hands or legs, something like that, and put its hind legs up, letting and wave its like kind of like tail around, letting you know that, look, get away now or I'm gonna spray you. Also, this skunk sprayed the crap out of multiple people within seconds of each other. I believe, and don't quote me on this because it's been a while since I watched Crack's Creatures. I believe that it takes a while for a skunk to rebuild up its glands so it can spray people. So this is why it gives people like warning signs or other animals and everything. And like, it makes sure that, spraying something is its last resort to get away, because they can't just constantly respray you over and over and over again. It has to like build up the glands and everything to reproduce this like stinky material and everything. Chuck was a little wolf that Lou found and assumed was a dog. See, in the episode, Lou found out that her dog had died. And so she found this other canine that she assumed was a dog, but he kept tearing apart everything in their cabin and kept leaving in the middle of the night. They later realized that Chuck was actually a wolf. I mean, it was pretty freaking obvious and everything. So Lou felt, since it's a wild animal, it needs to go back into the wild. But Chuck didn't want to go back. But eventually they sent him back in that of the second season. In the third season, Chuck reappeared much older and everything. And when the girls, I think, were like lost in the woods and stuff, they found Chuck. And it was cool to see him recur and come back and everything after just making that one appearance in season 2. The Kikiwakas make no sense to me. So originally, I guess they appeared in the first episode of the first season, but I don't remember. But Tiffany and Ravi went looking for them and tried to like videotape them, but they didn't get no glimpse of them. But they do exist. They're kind of like this Bigfoot type creature. Then in season 3, this woman captured one, and the new kids, the new trio, rescued it. They shaved it to make it look human, and it does look human. Like when it had fuzzy hair looking like a beast, a Bigfoot creature, it looked like a human wearing a costume. So when they shaved it and it's a normal looking kid with normal hair on top of his head, I assumed it was just a kid who grew his hair out all over his body, had that one illness that has hair everywhere. But no, it's an actual creature, a feral one at that. And it can kind of talk a little bit, and it just acts like a savage beast and everything. In a way, the mom came and got it, and the mom looks like Bigfoot, and they just went off into the woods, and Timmy found them and everything. I don't know what the heck a Kikiwaka is, but it's an actual primal beast that just looks normally like a human who has a lot of hair. My assumption is that it's that illness that people have where hair grows all over their body. Society has rejected them. They live in the woods, eat off the land, and became feral and everything. The show sometimes don't make no sense. Bertram appears very shortly in the first episode of the second season when he's trying to get the Ross kids out of there so he can be alone and they can go to summer camp. He's his typical self of not wanting to be bothered and just wanting to get rid of the kids, and they see him celebrating when he thinks they're gone. It was nice to see this dude again. I wish he could have been on this show, but the show would have been completely different if he would have been on there, because he would have been complaining, getting chased by Gladys, and not want to be with the kid. That would have been kind of fun, actually, him being chased by Gladys. Cameron Boyce. May that dude rest in peace. Cameron, of course, passed away, I think, from having a seizure and everything. And Luke actually appears in 2 episodes. I believe they said Cameron just didn't want to be on the show because he wanted to do another show on Disney XD. But he was nice enough to guest star in 2 episodes for season 1 and season 2. He appeared in backstage in season 3 when Karen directed like his first episode, but he never appeared in season 3. Luke is completely different in this show. When he first appears in season 1, he's nicer, especially to Ravi. He's more helpful, wanting to help Ravi with a school, well, not school, but like a camper bully from another camp and everything. He's not reckless, and he's actually pretty smart. He says that he makes straight A's once the kids left, and he's no longer dumb. But then in season two, when he reappears, he's acting just like Luke. He's dumb once again and can't do math and can't read. He's reckless and endanger the lives of like the younger campers and stuff by taking them rock climbing with no equipment. I don't know why they did this. Because yeah, it was kind of strange to see him act completely different in season one, but that's progression, that's character development and growth. But they regressed him by making him still that crazy person and dumb person he was back in the Jesse days. Mrs. Tilly. Mrs. Tilly is a recurring character who appears in at least one episode per season by season three. And I remember this actress from Just Add Magic. So I was extremely happy to see her. And it's the first time I ever seen her smile and be happy and stuff. Mrs. Tilly is basically a sweet little lady who has a cottage that she bakes like, that she bakes and stuff like cookies and like stones and all kind of other little baked goods and stuff. And so when the guys were going camping at night in the woods, they stumble upon her place and decide to stay there because they were too scared to like stay at night. Plus, they was exhausted from eating all the good food and everything. Her most prominent episode is probably in season 5 when she hosted a murder mystery clue type thing at her house, and the kids mistaking it for her actually trying to murder people and stuff. Chef Jeff. Chef Jeff is somebody who showed up in season 4. He's the new chef and he's pretty nice and everything. He's kind of just there, who kind of pops in, pops out, doesn't really do much, doesn't really say much. But in that Renaissance episode, he does get to do a little bit more. Like he gets tired of Finn bossing him around because Destiny is making him boss everybody around. And he causes the other villagers, well technically campers, to riot against Finn. And Jeff's last appearance is the Icy episode where he stole the Icy machine and wrecked it in the woods. So after destroying it and everything, he gave Lou his engagement ring that he was going to give his fiance, but she turned him down, so that Lou could sell it and buy a new machine. At first, Lou thought he was proposing to her, but this character, like I said before, just didn't last long, and he was kind of uninteresting, so, he's gone. Timmy. Timmy is like my favorite recurring character of all time. This is the only show he's ever acted in. Timmy was only in season 1, 2, and 3. And the thing about Timmy is that his parents didn't have enough money for camp, so he was rejected, and he's been waiting by the bus bench ever since. But no buses come that way and haven't came that way in decades. So he's literally just living out in the woods and his parents never came and got him. But then to make matters worse is Gladys won't even let him live on camp. Then when Hazel is in season 2, he finally has the money for the camp. And so he finally gets admitted, but Gladys is all oh, she feels horrible about how she treated him and she's going to keep a watchful eye on him 24/7. He's screw that. He'd rather live in the woods. Then I think in season 2 at some point, Hazel was all yeah, we can't accept this check and you're still on our property. You need to get off and go back to the bench. Then in season 3, something happens and Emma's yeah, you can't stay here and everything. So he basically just lives out in the woods. And when he met the Kikiwaka creatures, which they don't make no sense, but I'll get to that a little bit later. He decides, you know what? He asked them to adopt him, and he's gonna live in the woods with them and everything. And we never seen him since. He's the most hilarious recurring gag the show had. Lyda, played by Lily Mae Silverstein. So she appeared in the second season as a recurring character. Only was in 3 episodes, and she also reappeared in the third season. She is a bad girl, and she's part of the Weasel cabin, which Hazel is appointed to, and she terrifies Hazel. And so she's kind of like this little tough punk rocker goth type girl with black lipstick and like frizzy kind of like pent up ponytailish kind of hair. And she has a group of girls that are kind of like her gang. And basically, they're just there to wreak havoc and like terrorize everybody, which they do, tying people up and all kind of crazy stuff. But it's never really explained why she is the way she is. She just is the way she is. Her gang constantly recurs with her, but they never say nothing. They only brought one of her gang members back in season three. In season three, she was a little bit nicer because they were doing like this like camp games and everything, and she had to like partner with the other kids, and she was like somewhat nice but still kind of rude and sarcastic. I guess since it was her last outing, they wanted to like do something nice for the character and stuff and show that she has a softer side, but for the most part she is just downright evil. Like when the original trio found like a clubhouse, treehouse type thing, her and her friends like legit stole it. And so like when she was up there with like the trio and everything, it started to fall down. So they all had to be like rescued with like a rope and all this other stuff. And other than that, like her character really doesn't do nothing but just terrorizes people. Now, sadly, she was affected by the Disney Channel curse and really hasn't acted in anything since. Christina Ross. So she only appears on one episode, and she's Emma's biological mother and the other kid's adoptive mother. And Morgan is her husband. Now, Morgan never appears, but he's mentioned a lot, and you see his picture a lot because Gladys is like obsessed with him and has like cutout pictures of him and a pillow and stuff like that. So Christina, when she appears, it turns out she was like this huge camper back in the day, and she gets all these awards. And so she was having a blast just being back there and doing stuff. But it pissed Emma off because Emma felt like her mom was showing off and that she's a better like counselor and camper than she is and stuff. Gladys hates Christina to death because she feels like she stole Morgan from her. Murphy is there in season 2. He is the head chef. In season 1, we saw Jorge, one of the campers, like literally cook the food and stuff like that. But then they hired Murphy in season 2. He's constantly getting hit on by Gladys. He has a strong like Jersey accent. And pretty much every time one of the kids do some kind of weird shenanigans, he gets like put in the middle of it. His cooking appears to be like crap because they have to use weird and inspired and like processed meat type stuff. But they wrote him out in season 3, but they gave him somewhat of a farewell. And one episode he appears where like he quit Kinkiwaka and he started working for Camp Champion, which is their rival camp, where he's the head chef there, and apparently he's actually a whole lot better than people thought. It's just the food was never like, healthy enough at Kikiwaka, but he's actually a pretty good cook. For the most part, he's a pretty nice like person. He's not like mean or grumpy or nothing like that. Nadine, played by Karina Crater. So Nadine was the second prominent Asian character on the show, but she's only a recurring character, only being in 5 episodes of season 5. Tiffany is still the prominent Asian character, being a main cast member. And so Nadine was really cool. I really liked this character in season 5, and I wish she could have been in more episodes. Basically, she's part of Kikiwaka's new like Pee-wee program to where little kids can come to Kikiwaka during the day. However, I believe her character was also there during the night because her mom, well, it's implied that she's a single mom and, had to work like night shifts and stuff like that. So during the extras and everything, the other Pee Wee people never had like speaking parts, but she was the only one. What's fascinating about her character is she wants to be like a superhero. Because she strives to be a superhero, she is reckless and everything. So reckless that she has injured herself multiple times. She has broken so many of her bones that she had to get like so much surgery and metal plates inserted into her body. But it was fun seeing her wear her little handmade like superhero costume, and pretending to be like a superhero and stuff. She even creates her own comic book. Barb is played by Rainey Rodriguez. She is best for that Disney Channel show Austin and Ally. And what's interesting is that she actually did a Jesse crossover for that Austin show. So she's like really the only person to play like two different characters in the Jesse universe. And so she is the head director at Camp Champion, and she's Lou's arch rival. A rival we've never heard of until season 4, when we started to hear more about Camp Champion and everything. She's kind of like the Hazel of the show. She's a recurring character who's been in 8 episodes. And so, like, one thing she loves to do is like power walk. That's like the only way she walks and everything. She always wears like what are them outfits called? Like windbreaker outfits and everything. And her and Lou just flat out hate each other. And I mean, they hate each other. Like, apparently they just been rivals for like the longest time, because apparently Lou just hates Camp Champion ever since season 4, but we never knew that before. And so normally she's the type of person who admit to like cheating just so she can win. And the reason why they basically hate each other, because they just hate each other's camps. It's really nothing too personal and stuff. We don't know like too much about her and everything. And so like there was that one episode in season 4 towards the end when they swapped for like directors. That's when Miranda May, who plays Lou, she directed the episode. So Lou went to Camp Champion, which we never got to see anything about because we've never seen Camp Champion. And so like Barb was the director at Kikiwaka, and she runs everything like a drill sergeant. She's really tough, really mean, and really sarcastic and stuff. But because of Ava and Destiny, she learned to have fun for the first time. And after that one episode, she just always wanted to party and dance and like pull pranks and like everything else. Until like she had to go back to Camp Champion because Lou kept talking about how she was just so free spirited and let the kids like sleep in and this and that. Because the thing about Barb is she loves order and she likes to micromanage. In another episode, it was revealed that she was going to lose her job over at Camp Champion because the campers had to bunk with the people at Kikiwaka because something happened and Camp Champion like flooded. And so her and Lou couldn't get along for the entirety of the episode. And like it was revealed, she was the reason why it flooded. And so she came extremely close to getting fired until Lou like lied to say that it was Lou that flooded Camp Champion as like a prank. But even after that, they still just couldn't get along. But she appreciated for what Lou did for her and stuff. It was revealed in season 7 she lost her job at Camp Champion and lives at like her family's camp because she lost like some type of power walk marathon thing where she came in like 2nd place or some weird crap like that. The actress has continued to work, but primarily in voice acting, and a lot of those Jurassic Park cartoon animated series, which I didn't even know they had. Sadly, however, about in 2018, Around the time she started appearing on this show, a lot of people were really mean to her on social media, making fun of her weight. I swear to God, like people are just disgusting and want to be bullies and stuff. Now, of course, she does look familiar. Her brother is Ricardo, I think that's his name, from Modern Family, who plays Manny. And those two look identical to each other. Gladys is played by Mary Shahir, and she's best known for being one of the original cast members of Mad TV back in the 90s. I love Mad TV. So much better than SNL. But she's also known as Freddie's mother from iCarly. And so, like, she's kind of like the Bertram of the show. She doesn't really like kids. She's lazy. She could care less if anybody gets hurt. Her campsite is like horrid and everything. Like, everything's falling down. The water is toxic and polluted. The food will make you sick. Like, she could care less. But she doesn't have the money to fix things up. She is obsessed with Morgan Ross to where she has like cut out pictures of him, pictures of him on her pillow, a stand-up poster of him and everything that she kisses and all this other crap. She is extremely obsessed with men and horny and stuff like that. How did that make it into a Disney Channel show? I have no idea, but it makes for good comic relief. Every man she sees, she constantly hits on. She believes that this Nigerian prince online is in love with her and he wants her to send him money and everything. She has no idea it's like a scam. And so she's just this dreary, depressed, like, repressed and depressed woman and everything. And she's just always gloomy, and anything she can do for like a buck or to save money, she will do. For the most part, like I said before, she hates Christina Ross, but she treats the Ross kids pretty fairly and everything. And she's actually pretty nice to them for the most part, especially when Emma and Ravi thought they failed their CIT test to be real counselors, but she told them they passed because of the simple fact they cared about the kids when there was like a campfire and stuff like that and rescued them. One in which her niece Hazel started and stuff. She got written out at the end of season 2, and at the beginning of season 3, they wrote one of the worst things they could do for her, but at the same time, at least she's happy. See, after the fire, they got the insurance check. She took the check and fled. So she gets to live rich and happy, but it makes her a horrible person. Griff, played by Lincoln Mercer. He appeared in the second season, and second season only. He never came back. And so he was a juvenile delinquent, a bad boy of the show, but he's kind of like the bad boy, good guy kind of thing. Apparently, the reason why he was in juvie is because his family didn't have enough food to eat, so he stole it, and then that led to him stealing more and more and more. He has a habit of just stealing stuff. Like when he's on camp, he stole a bunch of people watches and wallets and stuff like that. For the most part, Griff is not like a bad thug or nothing like that. He really is a good guy. He's just a kleptomaniac. But they do the typical, like, oh, because he's a bad boy, they do the cool bad boy thing where all the girls like him, like Zuri and Tiffany, which causes confusion when Jorge thinks they like him. He constantly have girls swarming over him and this and that. Eventually, he does have a crush on, like, Zuri, which, I think, what is it, like, some of the counselors didn't like that. Like, I know Emma didn't like it because Zuri's her sister, but Xander was cool with it, but he just didn't like Zuri because she's a bad girl too. So they didn't want those two dating, so it was kind of like a Romeo Juliet kind of thing. When he first got there, Ravi pretty much judged him because of his juvie record without getting to know him. And so the moral lesson of that episode was, you don't judge a book by its cover, because he hates when people always, they find out what he did and they just assume he's like this big thug, but he's not. But he does get into devilment like a lot, and it's kind of a bad influence on Zuri because, when he was with Luke in that one episode, they went rock climbing without any like safety gear, and like there's something else they did that was unsafe as well. But for the most part, they just have him as the cool bad boy type. But after the whole him and Zuri liking each other, they just wrote him out after the second season. Now, because he's in that program for summer camp, and the camp was about to close down, Xander decided to adopt him as like his brother-like figure, so he wouldn't have to go back to juvie. Since then, the actor has not acted in anything else, but the dude grew. He's like 6 foot tall now. Hazel. Hazel is played by Tessa Netting. And so Hazel is pretty much the antagonist of the show. She's like Mrs. Chesterfield. She hates Emma to death because, see, the thing is, Hazel's a combination, actually. She's a combination of Miss Chesterfield and Creepy Connie. Hazel has a mad crush on Xander, and it started ever since they was little, and she gave him a guitar with a note, but he thought it was from Lou. So instead of really being pissed at Lou, she's just pissed at Emma because Emma and Xander are a thing. When I say she is obsessed with Xander, boy, it's literally the level of Creepy Connie from Jessie and Harper from Wizards of Waverly Place, when Harper was like in love with Justin. Like, she has like cut out pictures, his face on a pillow. She steals his hair and makes like a doll out of it. She is as creepy can be. She has a really unique fashion sense. She has pigtails, which I'm cool with the pigtails, but it's the back of the hair I don't like. It's like this big flap that comes out kind of like a mullet, and I don't like that. Now, I always assumed the actress was blonde, but she has bleach blonde hair. That should have been a giveaway. She's actually a brunette in real life. And it's funny because they mention her hair in season 4 when she guest stars in season 4 talking about her roots and everything. She only lasted for 2 seasons on the show. And the thing about Hazel is that she is just downright mean. She makes everybody's life miserable because she can't have what she wants. She is part of the Weasel bunk and everything, and they terrify the crap out of her. At least in season 2 they do. Like I said before, she hates Emma, but like Emma tries her best to be friends with her. And it kind of works a little bit. We do see a softer side of Hazel somewhere in the middle of like season 2 when it's revealed she's a geek who likes this like type of Dungeons and Dragons type game that she plays with like Robbie and Tiffany. But when they found out she's a dork like them and they tried to like befriend her at the lunch table, she just made fun of them in front of everybody because she didn't want nobody to know that she plays that, but then acted completely two-faced and wanted to play with them again. And so it was at the point that where she finally confessed to everybody she's just a big dork who wears a cape and pretends to play that Dungeons and Dragon-esque type game and everything. But it's weird because after befriending him and everything and starting to cozy up to Emma, she tries to sabotage Emma and Robbie becoming like full-time counselors. Like the task they had out in the woods, she sabotaged that, and she accidentally started a fire in the grizzly and the woodchuck, like, cabins and stuff. She tried to blame it on them, but then when they found out it was her, she had to own up to it and stuff like that. She's a character you love to hate. Like, cause she's so mean and it like everybody. Like, she's also the part-time nurse because they don't have the budget to hire a real nurse. And when she's in a good mood, she'll treat you nice, but when she's in a pissed off kind of mood, she'll treat you downright nasty and give you a giant needle and stuff. She has no friends, and when she did start to make friends with like Lou, Emma, and Tiffany and Zuri, she became very obsessed and wanted to do everything with them and wanted them to dress just like her. And I forgot, she wears like these pants that are kind of like capris with suspenders on them and kind of like a checkered shirt or just her Kiki Walker shirt. And it kind of reminds me of Steve Urkel a little bit. But it's like, I don't know, it's weird because, like I said before, she's the person you love to hate. Now, she has two different tones to her voice. There's the natural, normal tone that the actress has. Then there's this high pitched voice that she does when she's being like sarcastic or sinister and stuff. And that high pitched like laugh she has, a hand like that. And but it's weird because when she comes back for season 4, the guest star, she just has the high pitched voice all like, all around and everything. Now, there's a flashback of her, Xander, and Lou when they was campers as kids, but she was never friends with Lou or like really Xander, but she had a crush on Xander. In season 4, for some bizarre reason, they retconned it. Cause see, she came back, she snuck back on camp, cause they never explained where she went after season 2 and why she quit and everything. And so when she comes back, she snuck up on camp and started digging a bunch of holes because she's looking for a capsule, a time capsule and everything. And she reveals to Lou and everything after she gets caught that like Kiki Waka was the best place in her life and she loved it so much and she missed it. But more importantly than that, she misses Lou because apparently in the time capsule, there's a photograph of those two together. And they used to be best friends. And I'm like, hold up. Never once in 2 seasons did those two ever act chummy. Never once did they act like they was best friends, and never once was it revealed that they used to be best friends. But she revealed, I guess because after the whole Gintar incident, like with the whole Xander thing, she just stopped talking to Lou, which is kind of something they just crammed in there. But I mean, it makes sense when you know the original flashback of like season 2 with the Gintar thing. But at that same time, it's just kind of like they were best friends, and that she misses and love Lou and all like what? I get it. They wanted to make her nicer on her return after firing her and everything. But it was just so weird. And it's so out of canon because Lou still wants nothing to do with her, making Lou look like the bad person. But of course, if you know how horrible Hazel is, then you know why Lou wants nothing to do with her. And after that, she's gone again. Now, the actress, she's appeared in a couple of stuff like after like Disney Channel, but was affected by the Disney Channel curse. I remember the first project I seen her in post like, bunk'd was a show called Freakish on Hulu, which you can still watch, and I review, go watch that. And I was so bummed out because I saw her in the first episode. So I'm like, cool, she's gonna be in this zombie type show. But no, she was only in there for like a few seconds. Had one line of dialogue is "get out the way," because she wanted to go home and check on her family during the zombie apocalypse. And just like that, she was gone after that first episode. Was only in there for a few seconds, and I was like, oh man, I wanted to see Hazel. But she was voiced as the new voice actress for Sweetie Bird on the Tiny Toons like reboot. But that reboot did not last that long. I think it only lasted for a season or 2. I tried to watch that. I could not get into that. I love the original from the 90s. Like, there was no way they was gonna recapture that magic. And they should have advanced it to where the kids were older, but they didn't. Xander, played by Kevin Quinn. So Xander was there for the first 2 seasons, and he's the one who sings the intro. The character of Xander is pretty cool. He's nice, he's caring, he's helpful and everything. And Hazel will not leave him alone. He does not like Hazel whatsoever, and she gets on his nerves. But he's in a inappropriate relationship with Emma when you do the math, because halfway into season 1 he's 18 and she's only 16, and she doesn't turn 18 until the 3rd season, but by that time his character is off the show. How that slipped past Disney Channel, I have no idea. And so, like, it turns out that he's actually a football player. But football is not really his passion. Singing is, and being a counselor and stuff. He loves music, and, he said he had to flip a bunch of burgers just to afford his, like, fancy guitar that he got in season 2. But he was given a tiny ukulele type guitar by Hazel when they was younger, but he had no idea it was from her. He's known Lou and Hazel for like the longest, being kids when they was at Kikiwaka back in the day. And now they're like, all 3 of them are counselors and stuff. He's the head of the Grizzly cabin with like Ravi and Jorge in there. And for the most part, he gets along very well with like everybody. Jorge tends to kind of like gross him out, but that's just who Jorge is with everybody, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, he will like, help a person out when in need. He does go a little bit too far when trying to help Emma pass like her CIT test to be that of a full-time counselor by trying to help her cheat, only because he doesn't feel like, she can pass on her own because she's Emma and Emma's like really dumb. He sticks his neck out for Griff, when Ravi started to like judge him, thinking that he stole his guitar. But then he listened to Ravi way too much when he found the guitar pick on like Griff's like bed. And so he started to accuse him of stealing the guitar, but only found out that Gladys is the one who took it. When the show first started, him and Emma kind of just like liked each other. They tried to date, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't going to work out. And so for a couple of episodes, they were broken up until they finally made it official. And for the most part, he's a really good boyfriend to her. He never cheats on her, even though she assumed that him and Lou were like cheating behind her back. But that's only because Emma's very, very jealous. But him and Lou are like really great friends, and they have really cool chemistry together and stuff. I can't really think. I'm trying to think of other things for his character. I know that he's afraid of heights and everything. Now, it was really disappointing to see his character leave at the end of like season 2, because he's a really nice character. And not only that, before I get into that, so his football thing with his dad. So even though he plays football, like I said before, he's not really into that. And so it causes a bit of a conflict between him and his father, because his father at the end, I think, of season 1 wanted to not have him return to Kikiwaka in the 2nd season for summer camp, because he wanted him to go to football training. So he's going to do whatever his father tells him and stuff. But that's not where his heart is at. His heart is with Emma and that of music. So he stands up to like his father and stuff like that. And of course, Gladys has a huge crush on his father. Anyway, back to the acting. So it was disappointing to see the actor leave at the end of season 2. He's a nice character, and the theme song had to go away because they would have to pay him royalties and everything. And of course, Disney ain't gonna do that. And so I assume he was just fired with everybody else until an interview in about 2024, that where he revealed he actually asked to be released from the show. And so before I saw this interview, I had already looked him up on Wikipedia a few days ago. And he also did an interview in 2024 that explains, okay, now that interview that he did makes a whole lot more sense. So in the interview, he talks about like how he was on an airplane with like his parents, and he was like fearing getting that call from Disney Channel asking him if he wanted to return for like a third season. And because he didn't want to return and everything. And he said he literally had a panic attack on the airplane, like hollering, screaming, crying, all this other stuff, because he just did not want to return to the show for some reason. But here's the thing is, like, I knew why and stuff. I'm reading the thing on Wikipedia. But what he said didn't make a lot of sense. See, he said that like he had a great time on Bunk, the cast, the crew, the atmosphere, everything. So it's kind of like if he had a good time on the show, why did he just dread wanting to come back to it? It made it seem like there was some behind the scene conflict that he probably wasn't like comfortable with. But it turns out, from what I read on Wikipedia, he suffers from mental illness. He is borderline, well, he has a borderline personality disorder. And so that probably is what caused him to freak out on the plane and not want to come back and all this other stuff. Either way, I just want this dude to take care, and like I hope nothing but the best for him, because you have to take care of your mind. And if you're not happy doing something for whatever reason, then it's not the best thing for you. You know what I'm saying? And he has continued to act since Bunk, so that's a good thing. But yeah, I was always wondering for the longest time, like, why did his character leave the show? Because he's only mentioned one time in season 4 of all things. And it's just like they completely skipped over him in season 3, never mentioned him until Hazel came back in season 4. And I assume he just got fired like everybody else, but he was the only one who actually just asked to be fired and stuff. Nathan Arnaz played that of Jorge. Jorge is the very first Latino character in the entire Jesse/Bunk franchise, because they didn't have one in the Jesse show, which was kind of odd. But people assumed Luke might have been Latino, but nobody knew what his race was. They never explained it on the show. And so, like, it's been a long time since Bunk came out. Like, this show literally came out 19 years ago, right? And so when getting pictures of what they look like as like older people, because now from seasons 1 through 5, the younger cast are now all adults. Man, I cannot believe how like different they look. Like, they're grown, man. Like, I was like, what? Y'all used to be itty bitty little people, and now y'all are grown adults. Like, this is insane. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is insane. So Jorge used to have some amazing long curly hair, which now the actor has cut his hair and it's more wavy than it is curly. Jorge is kind of like the Luke of the show in terms of like his character is really dumb and he loves really gross, nasty stuff. Always farting. Like, he has like a blanket he farts in because he doesn't want the air to get out and have everybody be grossed out. And well, that is right there what causes the problem. Because he's lazy, because he's gross and disgusting. Because like in one episode, for some reason, he was the chef of like Kiki Waka. And I don't know why they had the kid be the chef for. And he was making soup. And so to season it, he put in a leather boot. Mainly because they don't have the ingredients because the camp is so poor, but also because he's so gross. So because he's dumb, because he's lazy, and because he's gross and nasty, sadly, this did not age well, because this is a huge Mexican stereotype throughout the Mexican people. And since he is the first Latino on the show and the only one of season 1 and 2, this comes off as a huge racial stereotype, which I hate so much, and I'm not even Latino. Now, almost every Disney show has that dumb character, and almost every Disney show has, like, the boy character who's like really gross and nasty. That's typical in most boy characters because boys are gross and nasty, you know what I'm saying? But like, because Luke was like gross and nasty. But the thing about Luke is that his character traits was more about being adventurous, dumb, reckless, and fanning over like Jesse. The gross thing was just like a minor part of his character. Same thing with Max. Max was, dumb and stupid, and like the gross part was like a minor part of his character, who is also Mexican, by the way. But since Jorge is literally the only Latino in the first 2 seasons, this is a bad look. It would have been okay if there was more Latino people. Then it'd be like, okay, he's just a gross, nasty boy. But because this franchise loves those racial stereotypes and everything, it just comes out in poor, bad taste. And the thing, unlike Luke and Finn, because Finn will be the kind of like replacement of Jorge and everything when it comes to gross and nasty stuff, Jorge is at times more embarrassed by his gross, nasty stuff, whereas Luke and Finn, they accept it and they love it and everything, you know what I'm saying? Plus Jorge, while all Jorge, Luke, and Finn all get made fun of because of how gross and nasty they are, Jorge tends to get made fun of more so behind his back or when he's off screen. And so it's made to laugh at him than with him and everything. I hate that. Plus, like I said before, the character is really, really, really dumb. But then there are times when he does show some resemblance of intelligence and everything. He will tend to stand up for himself for the most part, but not that much and everything. But he's a sweet, nice, adorable little kid. And I really hate that he's like, the gross one and stuff. One of his biggest episodes is like when he was homesick. So he literally wanted to like run away and go back home. And so in the episode, after they found him and stuff, like, they decided they were going to dress up as his parents and pretend to be like how his family is at home. However, his family is once again a big stereotype because all they did was like argue and everything. Which, of course, is, like I said before, is another stereotype amongst, like, Latino people. But what was interesting is that they all put on wigs that looked like Jorge's hair, curly and black. Only for him to say he is the only person in his family who has black, curly hair. Everybody else has blonde, straight hair. And I'm just kind of like, what? His family is Mexican. Now, I've never seen a Mexican person with blonde hair. You either see them with black hair or you see them with light brown hair or dark brown hair, but you never see them with blonde hair. However, there were Mexicans back in the day who had blonde hair. Now, this was back in like the 70s, the 80s, and maybe the 60s. And I found that out because I was watching True Hollywood Story, and they was doing a documentary on Eva Longoria. She is best known for playing Gabrielle in Desperate Housewives. So the person who played her husband in the show, he was interviewed as well, and he said, back when Eva was growing up as like a little girl and everything, she had blonde hair because her parents dyed her hair blonde. And this was so she could be accepted more in like white American culture. This is something a lot of Mexican people did back in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so when he said his family has blonde hair, I'm like, well, are they trying to like blend in or something? Because this ain't the 60s and 70s and 80s no more. And I'm just kind of like, why? Why in the world would they say all his family members have blonde hair? And I forgot, oh wait, this is Disney Channel. And Disney Channel, even though they pretend to be diverse and everything, really, like with a lot of their shows, like That's So Raven, a predominantly black show, it was originally supposed to be a white show. Wizards of Waverly Place, that's an Italian Mexican show, was originally supposed to be a white show. So they're trying to cater to a certain audience that has blonde hair and everything, so that they won't be offended when they see a Latino boy on screen. And it's kind of baffling that Jorge would be a huge racial stereotype, especially because this show came out in like, the early stages of like woke Hollywood and everything, when it was all about acceptance and trying to show people on screen you ain't never shown before, and because like the Jesse show never had a Latino person. And it's just kind of like, how did this slip through the cracks? I will never know. Now, Jorge is part of the trio. The trio is like Tiffany and Zuri, the younger kids of the main cast and everything. And they get along fairly well for the most part. It's mostly Zuri and Tiffany who gets along a bit more better. Jorge's just kind of like there hanging out with them because he's the younger part of the cast, but he mostly hangs out with Xander and Ravi, who are like much older and stuff. They're all grossed out by his antics, how he doesn't like brushing his teeth and this and that. There's a recurring gag about his curly hair to where it's like, he sleeps with curlers in his hair, because how is he gonna get those curls and everything? So I always thought that was kind of funny and everything. He is very emotional. He will wear like his emotion on his sleeves at times. He had like a soccer ball that like had a face on there trying to mimic that Tom Hanks movie at that time, the Castaway movie. We also seen that he's pretty lazy in like sports and everything, trying to get out of them by saying he's hurt and having to go to the infirmary. Other than that, he's a very like jolly type, like, hilarious character who's just always happy and everything. The dude always has a smile on his face. And that's why I was really bummed when like they wrote him off the show. Because it's kind of like, he was just like this adorable little smiley kid. And like, he accepted himself for who he is, this big smelly kind of person. And then they just wrote him off and gave his character traits to like two other characters and stuff. Now, the actor, he has acted since, mostly doing like voice work and stuff like that. So thankfully, the Disney Channel curse did not like affect him too much and stuff. I'm trying to think of more stuff he did on the show, but I can't think of anything because mostly he was just like the butt of like the show. Tiffany, played by Nina Liu. So, Tiffany is sadly a huge Asian stereotype. She's probably more of a stereotype than Jorge is. She's the very first, like, Asian character in the franchise. Well, technically, Ravi is like South Asian, but he's Indian. But she's like, Chinese Asian and stuff. And so, just like with Jorge, they decided, hey, let's make her into the biggest stereotype ever. And I mean the biggest stereotype ever. She is a genius, just like Ravi is. And so that's one Asian stereotype right there, that Asian people are all like super geniuses. She also plays a violin, which when it comes to television show, a lot of Asian people tend to play the violin for some reason when their character plays a musical instrument. She has a tiger mom, a mom that like, all she wants Tiffany to do is study, study, study so she can be smart and be a doctor when she grows up. This is another huge like racial Asian stereotype. And it's just kind of like that's all they could think of when it came to like crafting out her character. And like, it's so offensive, like so offensive and everything. 'Cause this is the very first Asian person. And thank God they didn't have her doing martial arts. Like, thank God. But she can speak other languages. Now, they say she can technically write and speak Mandarin and everything. But we never see her do this. In fact, you never really see no type of Asian like traits when it comes to her. Like no clothing, no like furniture, no like anything. You know what I'm saying? Other than the racial stereotypes. And when it comes to her, she's never had fun in her life because all she ever has to do is study. She is terrified of her mother because if she doesn't get anything right, she will get like punished. And so, because of Zuri and everything, Zuri is like her best friend and really opens her up to the world and to like having fun for the first time in her life. And she's enjoying it and everything. Even though Zuri is a bad influence on her, still, it's great to see that Tiffany isn't so stressed out and she can just like let her hair down. Now, Tiffany is a bit like snarky and everything. Like, even though she's the dork and the nerd and the geek and everything, she is very kind of sassy and will tell you off and everything, or judge you and everything. And her and Ravi are pretty close as well because of how smart they are. But she also tends to like pick on him big time and make fun of him. But in one episode, she had a massive crush on him to where he had to let her down gently, and it was kind of hard for her because she had like real feelings for him, but he's older and stuff. Now, at one point, Jorge thought that both Tiffany and Zuri liked him, but instead they actually liked Griff, the bad boy and everything. Along with Robbie and Hazel, they like to play kind of like this Dungeons and Dragon type thing, a typical nerdy, geeky type of thing. Now, Tiffany and Jorge got the short end of the stick along with Xander when it came for the first two seasons. Because the show relied a lot on certain episodes to have some really good CGI and everything, and whenever they would bring in a guest star, they had to omit one of the main cast members, so Jorge, Tiffany, and sometimes, rarely Xander, will be missing from an episode. Tiffany and Jorge misses like a lot of episodes, but then after season 2, starting with season 3, they stopped this. Now, what's really odd and gets on my nerves when it comes to Disney Channel and when it comes to Tiffany and Asian parents is that the way Tiffany keeps describing her mom being like a tiger mom and Tiffany being Chinese and everything, I assume Tiffany's mom was like Asian. No, the actress is actually white or Jewish. This is odd because every Asian character in Disney Channel has one white parent. But they don't look mixed. Well, except for the Andy Mack girl. She is like mixed and everything. But London Tipton and Tiffany and everything, they're actually Asian. Tiffany, I believe, is Chinese, and London Tipton, the actress is Hmong and everything. And so it's like, why do they have a white parent for? But once again, this is Disney Channel trying to please a certain group that watches this show. And it doesn't make no sense for her mom to be white, especially with how she described her and everything. It's just, and she's not adopted because they would have mentioned that. So I guess in the eyes of Disney Channel, Tiffany is a mixed race and everything. This does not set well with me whatsoever. Like whatsoever. Now her mom is unbearable, but by the way Tiffany describes her, you would assume her mom is like a huge monster or something like that. But she's not that monstrous. She is stubborn and mean, but she's not the way Tiffany describes her, which of course is the fear of that of a little kid. Now, she had to trick her mom into lying and telling her that she went to actual like science camp and everything, and not just like that of a regular camp. So her friends had to pretend to be smart and wear glasses and stuff, but of course it didn't last that long. Now, in one episode with Tiffany and Ravi, they were trying to capture video footage of the Kiki Waka. Apparently, they saw it in the first episode, which I still don't remember. But, like, in one episode, they actually went looking for it and found it. But you never really get to see a good look of it. So they ran and they ran with the video camera with Tiffany holding it, but she accidentally just recorded herself running. So they never truly got to prove to everybody that Kiki Waka exists. But then in later seasons, the other kids, the new kids, were able to. You know, unlike Ravi, who's like the smart one, she's not like a wimp in any way, shape, or form. She is a bit dorky, but not super geeky dorky and everything, which I really do appreciate because when they went with Ravi being the smart one, and kind of a little bit Mateo as well in the third season, they went for like the Weasley wimp type of smart person. But she can actually be pretty tough and everything. And like I said before, pretty judgmental. As for the actress, she has starred in a couple of other stuff afterwards, things I've never really heard of. And I think some of these are like web series and stuff. Mostly, I think she stopped acting for now. I know she graduated from college and everything. She looks exactly the same, just like taller and older and stuff. And of course, she dyed her hair and cut it. Gwen, played by Scarlett Estevez. Gwen is my all-time favorite character in this show. Like, I was devastated she only lasted for a season. And it just really sucks that she left. But there's like a kind of reason she might have left. Anyway, Gwen, for the most part, is like a true like original character. I can't find no other character that is similar to her in the entirety of like the Jessie franchise or universe or whatever you want to call it. Like her character is like her family, they decided to live off the grid and decided to live in the woods, just living off like nature and stuff. So she's never been exposed to like electronics, the internet, television, cell phones, video games. She's never went to a traditional school. And so it's basically, you know, she's been homeschooled her entire life. And they just live, I guess, like in like a cabin wood or something like that, in like the woods or something like that. A wood cabin out in the woods. That's what I meant to go say. And so I can't find no other character that's like her, who knows how to hunt and like skin animals and just like all kind of other like survival type stuff. Well, Jesse's kind of survivalist being in the military, but completely different. And so this was nice to see that they just didn't recycle another character and clone it onto like Gwen. But Gwen, also, she's the second Latino in the show. So Gwen, one reason why I like her so much, other than the originality, is just her personality. She's very aloof to like a lot of stuff. She don't know what certain slang terms are. She don't know what catchphrases are. She doesn't know what certain objects and things are because she's been living off the grid her entire life. So she's kind of this, you know, this person trying to navigate and learn stuff. And her flaws make her a better person. And so, like, when she does discover things like the internet and the tablet and like a cell phone, she doesn't go like crazy over it, but she can't put them down and everything. And it's really like enjoyable to her. Another thing is like she's finally interacting with more like kids her own age because she is like really young in this series. And so it's like she's learning to evolve and grow and learn. And one of the things we learn about her is that when she gets like embarrassed, she gets like really angry and has like these bursts of like emotions, which makes her character hilarious because she's this tiny little person with this sweet little voice, but then all of a sudden she'll start like shouting and everything in like a very like loud burst kind of way. It was fun in the first couple of episodes, but then once they realized fans liked that, they kept doing it in every episode, and it became tedious after a while. And when it comes to her being embarrassed, it's like one time she farted near Mateo when they was out looking at the stars at night alone. And so, and I love the way the writers played this off because Mateo had a crush on her the first day he met her. And so when those two were like bonding and everything, and apparently she farted, but we nobody heard it on screen. And so when he kept trying to like get closer to her and talk to her, she freaked out and just ran off. And every time he kept trying to like talk to her, she would get like embarrassed and just like run off. So he literally had to like hop on like the kitchen table and everything and tell her like, he's sorry and everything. Like he didn't mean to like, I guess come on strongly or something like that. So she hopped on the table and they just had this big confession in front of everybody in the cafeteria. And basically she let him know and everybody else know that she farted. And normally farting is a big deal no matter who you are and everything. So for her not to really interact with people that much, like you would assume that she would be okay with farting around somebody because she's around her parents and stuff, but apparently she was very embarrassed by this. And also, like, she got extremely embarrassed when it came time for her to read. See, we find out in one episode that she's not very good at reading because she's been homeschooled and I guess her parents just didn't teach her much, which is kind of odd because most homeschool kids are very smart, and this kind of is a stereotype of Latino culture that, oh, you didn't teach your kid how to read and this and like that. But anyway, I get why they gave her this trait because they needed somebody to give this to, and the other kids have been going to school, but they could have gave it to Finn, but that's too much on the obvious and everything. And so when it came time for them to read out loud for something Lou was doing, she kept making all these excuses why she didn't want to read, and to the point where she got so pissed off, she like threw the book down and just like stormed out of there. And so when Lou finally like talked to her and everything, she found out what it was. The girl just has a problem reading out loud because she's not very good. And this is something kids all around the world have a problem with. I had a problem with that growing up. And I remember too, because like I wasn't taught very properly how to like read and everything. And I remember just like not wanting to read out loud. Like it's one of those things I always try to like duck out of. And I think I was in middle school at one point because I just had a fear just reading out loud because, I was always afraid, like, what if I mess this word up? Everybody's going to laugh at me, Now, by that time, I could read in middle school, but I was just so embarrassed because I was like, what happened in elementary and stuff, getting words wrong. It's like, oh no, you know what I'm saying? Man, the verbal fight I had with that substitute teacher in middle school, I am surprised I didn't get like suspended or detention because I was trying to do everything I could not to read out loud. And me and her got into it. But then once I did it out loud, and I was like, oh, I'm actually better than I thought. And so there's nothing to be afraid of. So, high school and college, it was like no deal. I mean, I still don't like doing it, just for the simple fact I just don't like doing it because there's always that lingering fear in the back of your mind, but you have to conquer your fear. And so Lou was nice enough to teach, like, Gwen how to read and everything. And it's episodes like that that I love, you know what I'm saying? Because, once they got into like the third, fourth, and fifth season, that's where it kind of got a bit more wackier and like, uneven and stuff. So I was glad they was able to throw something like this in. And the moral lesson wasn't like too over preachy and stuff like that, you know? And so Destiny turns out to be like her and Destiny hang out like a lot, like they're really good friends. But this causes a bit of I don't know, like mixed feelings I have for it because see, Destiny was best friends with both Mateo and Finn in the third season. They did everything together. They were the new trio. And so now in the fourth season, you actually don't see Destiny hanging out with those two guys that much no more because she just hangs out with Gwen and that of Ava. And so while that's cool and everything, I just kind of missed that dynamic the other trio had. And her and Mateo, they don't date in season four, but like you can tell they kind of like each other. But then when she leaves after season four and she gets stars in season five, it's revealed at the beginning of season five that him and Gwen are actually dating long distance and everything. And so when she re-shows back up, she's a bit older, a bit taller and stuff like that. And like Mateo tends to get jealous, I guess, whenever she talks about this other guy she's friends with and stuff. But they're not, she never cheated or nothing like that. So those two remain dating even after Mateo leaves the show as well. Because we find out in season 7 when they both guest star in the finale, they're still dating, going strong. It's just long distance and they text. And apparently, Gwen is now a counselor at Camp Kikiwaka by season 7. And it's all like, really? Y'all couldn't make her that? Like, y'all couldn't like put her on the ranch show and everything? But whatever. And also, it turns out she has road rage when she learned how to drive. Now, she is a survivalist. She knows how to survive in the woods. She always talks about like hunting animals, skinning them, doing this and that. And she's pretty tough. She has a bit of a tomboy-ish nature to her. But even though she knows how to survive out in the woods, she did fall between two like mountain rocks and get stuck to where Eva had to like rescue her and stuff. But she was a great addition to like the show, and I was devastated when she left. Now, when she left, she did a couple like movies, but she also went to go star in her own Disney Channel original series called Ultraviolet and Black Scorpion. It is a show I talked about extensively on like my channel. Go watch that. And I was devastated when it got canceled after one season. It wasn't your traditional Disney Channel show. There was little humor in it. It was it was like a between of like humor and drama and everything. So it's like a comedy drama. They really delved on the drama because it was a superhero show, but they also kept it kid friendly and everything. It had a nice balance to it, but it wasn't your wacky Disney Channel type show. So a lot of people weren't really feeling it. It was kind of like an Andy Mack type thing. That kind of like comedy slash drama thing to it. And Disney Channel kept experimenting with that a few years later, but then they started to realize, all right, look, we built a brand on wacky comedy. All this like kind of serious drama, like comedy stuff ain't working. So then they went back to the well and started making more wacky comedies again. But I don't know what's going on with Disney Channel. They keep canceling their shows now after 1 or 2 seasons. So something's going on with them, and I just think they're being stingy and don't want to pay no money. Now, in one episode, her brother appears, and he's played by the dude from Stuck in the Middle and Villains of Valley View. And so I forget the one who played Beast on Stuck in the Middle. And so basically he wants her to come home. He doesn't like the fact that she's at camp, she's acting different. He feel like she's forgetting her traditional ways of, like, living off the grid and this and that. At one point in time in one episode, she did start to lose her what makes her her. And she felt like electronics were just like making her soft and all this and that. So she started burying herself in electronics until her survival natureness started to come back, to where she ambushed the boys in their own cabin, which was kind of funny. Ava, played by Shelby Simmons. So she is the second biracial black person to appear in the Jesse universe. The first is technically Luke, but nobody knew what race he was, so we just have to go by the actor's race. But yeah, she's like half black and half white. And when she first appeared on the show, she's very much like Bertram, very lazy, very sarcastic, don't want to do nothing with kids. Her personality and attitude was a little bit irritating in the first couple of episodes when she appeared. And she only lasted for 2 seasons, season 4 and season 5, and she guest starred in the finale in season 7. But her personality didn't really vibe that well with me because she was kind of prickly and everything. She liked to be by herself, liked to be isolated a lot. She was very sarcastic in kind of a rude way. She didn't like having feelings. She didn't like having friends. And when, like, what was his name? Um, I can't think of the dude's name right now. Noah. So when Noah tried to like befriend her and all this and that, she just kept acting like she just didn't want to be bothered by him, kind of in a mean girl kind of way. But we find out why that is. It seems that she has about 5 or 7 brothers and stuff. And so she comes from a really big family, and she never gets to be like really by herself. So when she found this hot spring out in the middle of the woods, she kept that secret to herself until Noah found out. And so when he wanted to join her with this, she's all like, nah, and everything, and kept lying about it. But then he went and told like the new trio, and then they told the entire camp. Now everybody goes out there. And she was really pissed at him for a while, but then she explained why she wanted it all to herself. But then very early on, we see that she kind of likes Noah, and she invited him alone to the hot spring and everything, which, like, of course they can't because there's a bunch of kids out there now. But she did have feelings for him. And there were other episodes where she kept trying to display her emotions and feelings towards him, but like it always would backfire. Like the birthday episode, like she thought he planned her surprise birthday party, but the birthday party was actually for, I think, Gwen or something like that. And so he had her do all kind of like chores, like fix the septic tank and all this other crap. So that really hurt her until she found out that he really did give her a surprise birthday party and stuff like that. But then there was this one episode where they had to pretend like they were like in old timey times and everything. And so everybody was in character. And when he was talking to her and everything, and she was talking to him, it turns out that he thought that this other girl liked him. And so the other girl pretended to like him only because she was like in character, but the other girl didn't like him. And so when Ava tried to confess, how she feels about him, which she did, he thought that she was in character and like just completely blew her off and everything. But she actually did have real romantic feelings for him. Nothing ever came of this. Like Disney just decided to drop the ball with this relationship. And in season 5, she had a crush on another guy, but he turned out to be like a slob and everything. And so those two just never dated. Then she was gone by like after season 5. She has this whole thing of just like being lazy and not really wanting to be a counselor. She's a horrible counselor, and Lou lets her know all the time. Lou is actually pretty mean to her and really stern at times. Sometimes a little too mean and a little too stern, but I do get why Lou is that way towards her because Ava really does suck at being a counselor. She gets better over time. But like when Nadine, the machine, decided to go after Big Stinky and everything, she realized she can't like defeat a skunk. So as the skunk was about to upload on her, Ava decided to like, well, actually Noah tried to like rescue Nadine, but then Ava decided to, just jump in the way and take like the stank. Which is funny because the spray didn't come out as liquid, it came out as mist. Which I've never seen the skunk do that. They like, shoot out liquid. This could be because the big stinky animatronic they probably no longer had. And so, but they still could have faked it by squirting water in the air, but who knows why. And so it shows that even though she's lazy and she doesn't like being around kids that much, she does get worried when they go missing and she has to like rescue them and stuff like that. Like when she had to rescue Gwen because Gwen just kind of walked off and everything. And we find out why she's actually at camp. Like, so if she doesn't like being around other people and this and that, and being around kids, why is she at camp? Well, it turns out that her and her mom got into a huge fight. She feels neglected by her mom and this and that because there are so many siblings, and so her mom never goes to any of her events. So she's like, screw it, I'll go to summer camp. And that's what she did, and they hadn't spoke since. But in order to go to summer camp, you gotta pay a whole lot of money. So it's never revealed her family is like loaded or anything like that. So she must have had this planned out in advance and stuff like that and saved up her money. And so like when the kids find out that she hasn't spoken to their mom, they write like a fake letter to the mom, but the mom actually showed up thinking Ava wanted to apologize. They reconcile and stuff like that. Then when her brother shows up, it turns out that those two love to complain about stuff and make fun of folks, which we find out Ava does like to complain a lot and judge people and stuff. But when he starts to date Lou and starts to turn nicer, she doesn't like that. Eventually, she does turn over to a nicer side and starts like interacting with people. She ends up loving her campers and loves interacting with the rest of like the camp and getting involved and making sure everybody's taken care of and stuff and everybody is safe. But for some reason, she doesn't like RV people. So when Preston showed up, she judged him because he drives around in the RV until she found out that his RV is basically all pimped out inside. And it was really hilarious when she got stuck in like his chair, his massage chair. And so I do like the character of Ava. She, at first you didn't really know what to make of her. But after she had a nicer side to her, she became like a very cool character. And she even helped Mateo out when he was having problems with his identity. See, Mateo is mixed. And he had like a project where he had to make food from like his ancestors and stuff like that. Food of his people, I guess you could say. And he didn't know which one to pick. Does he pick one side or does he pick the other? If he picks one side, does that mean he likes that side more than the other? So he was very conflicted by that. And so she let him know that, yo, look, I'm black, I'm white, and I have no idea which box to like check off. So she's like, I choose which box I want and everything. I get the sentiment and the messaging. Like, I love that messaging, but of course, people are like, oh no, this is woke and everything. They're trying to brainwash our kids and teach them. This is good messaging because there are lots of mixed kids that don't know where they belong. And she even says it's difficult at times being biracial because she don't know where she fits in. There is nothing wrong with this messaging. It's just a people of a certain race who think they own everything don't like hearing that. However, when it comes to checking off the box, there is a biracial or mixed box next to like black, white, Hispanic, and Asian and all that other stuff. So I get what the writers were trying to do, but they forget how the real world operates and everything, because there is that biracial box or mixed box and everything, and she can just like check off that. Now, she does show back up in the finale, and it turns out she is still like a counselor there. She doesn't really do much in like the finale and everything. And it really pissed me off when they wrote her character off in the 6th season. It was kind of like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, why are they getting rid of these people? They got rid of Mateo as well. The actress does still work occasionally, but not as much as before. But it turns out she's like really big into animals and stuff. Now, in season 5, at the beginning of the first 5 episodes, they braided her hair, and I loved it. It was like these really cool big rope type braids, and they would put them all in these different designs. But then that went away after like the 5th episode, and I'm not sure why they did that, but it still is like in the intro. Okay, I'm gonna cap it off right here because the video's getting too long. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.